Hey, well, Danielle Shea, appreciate you having the time to jump on the Leading Life podcast and share a bit about your story with us. So, Danielle Shea is a healing coach for sexual abuse survivors, and she has agreed to come on here, share her experience, share how she helps people, and kind of give us a little insight into her leadership journey on how she got here. Right. So, in normalcy with Leading Life podcast, we always start with the one question. So people that are looking for some benefits and value can get it right away in case they are living those busy leadership lives, right? So the first question, Danielle, we're going to shoot right to it. What is the number one thing you drive for other leaders to learn the most?
So just real quick. Thanks, John. Happy to be here. So excited. And yeah, I love that we're doing the value right up front. So leaders, the thing that you need to know is you need to know yourself. If you're going to learn anything, learn you, like your own self-awareness journey, you walking through why you think the way you do. You know, there's so many root cause analysis things that you can do. The 5 whys, like getting to the root of why do you want this problem to be solved this way? Right. But then also, like, how are you showing up for your people? Why were you triggered by that person? Why did you react in this way? And the more self-aware that you can be, the better a leader that you become. And there's so many different ways that self-awareness supports leadership. And there's so many different modalities that support other things. So journaling is such a great way to become self-aware, but that also improves your writing skills. It improves your empathy. It improves your compassion. Meditation is another amazing thing. Leaders, you know that meditation is good for you. Why aren't you doing it? Yes. But it leads to self-awareness, but then also like it calms and regulates your nervous system. It makes you more empathetic and compassionate to others, which we need in order to be leaders in life, in our jobs, in whatever it is that you are leading in. And you can't make people care about the job, but if you can care about people and they can care about you, then they want to show up for you. Yes. And that is, I think, the true testament of a leader is gathering people to one cause and going, hey, this work might suck for a little bit, but we're doing it. And then you show them that you care, and then they care in return.
Yeah. And I love one thing you said right there is that you care, right? I've said this before on this podcast, and one of my motivations to starting this was just my experience with leadership development at companies, right? I think we've gone to a point where people hear leadership development and they think about a career, when it's really a life skill that you need to learn, and self-awareness is the first thing that, well, I wouldn't say the first, but it's one of the most important things that you should be focusing on, because if you don't understand like your weaknesses, your strength, where you're coming from, right? One thing, I saw this on a Reddit post a while back, and somebody had put like, what will make me a better leader? What skills should I learn? What disciplines? What everything like that and stuff like that. And I just commented on there. I'm like, dude, nothing's gonna make you a better leader if you just don't give a shit. Like, if you don't care about those people, dude, like, no technique, no skill, no whatever, dude, you're just gonna be doing the job. You gotta truly care about the people that you are leading, and like really listen to their stories, understand where they're coming from, little things like that. That's what will make you and separate you from the other leaders that are not caring, So yeah, I thank you for saying that.
Yeah. And I want to highlight what you said right there. I was just listening to a podcast with Jay Shetty and Vishen, can never pronounce his last name, but Vishen of Mind Valley. And Jay asked this really beautiful question when they were talking about compassion and gratitude of what's the difference between like a strategy and then actually using that tool. And I think that sometimes when we're in business, we think like, oh, people are like being compassionate to me, like to as a strategy for something, or like how can I show up like authentically so that people want to like opt in to my lead magnet or whatever, if we're talking about business. But if you're using it as a tool and a tactic, like then you're not actually caring, and you're not actually at that root cause of your own self-empathy and self-compassion and gratitude for other people. And people are really good bullshit detectors, especially trauma survivors. I know when you're lying to me right away. I might not call you out on it, but I'm not going to continue that rapport or
Yeah,
relationship building.
yeah,
Um, and you need that
definitely.
in leadership. It's not a
Yeah,
tactic. If you can get that with yourself,
yes.
not only is your life like just going to improve so much, but you're going to enjoy showing up because you're going to like yourself more.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And there's, I mean, I love what you harped on right there. It's you can't fake genuineness. You
No.
you really can't. Like people will, and I've seen people do this. I've worked in a lot of distribution environments from like logistics, supply chain, and stuff like that. And I've been privy to work around a lot of people. I've had teams up to like 60 people at one time. And when you're standing in front of them and you're saying something, like imagine trying to tell somebody like, hey guys, this shit sucks, but we got overtime again this weekend. And they're like, like, what am I gonna do? Be like, yeah, I'm so happy, man. We got overtime. Like, no, it sucks. I don't want to come in. I have plans on going to the beach. I have to be genuine about that. But like you said, hey, we're gonna get through this together because guess what? I feel exactly the way you feel right now.
Yeah.
But we got a job to do. We're gonna go through and we're gonna do this, right? And that's how you lead genuinely, not as a tactic or like, how can I trick these people to thinking that I really wanted to work overtime? Like, no, like that's not the way you lead, man. Like, just be genuine about it and just tell the people, and they'll respond more. And I've had so many people that I've led before and been privileged to lead before that respond to me where they come up to me and told me like, man, that other leader I was working with, like, there's just something about him. They can't pinpoint it, but
Yeah.
they're just like, there's just something. I don't know. He kind of just rubs me the wrong way, kind of thing. Or I don't know. There's something like he's fake or something like that. And I'm like, dude, like, and a lot of the times I had a I had a leader a while back when I was in the military. Asked me one time, he was a new leader, and he was like, hey man, and he actually was above me in one rank, and he actually came up to me and he was like, hey man, so I got a question. Like, I wanted to know, like, how is it that, it seems like the guys follow you more. It seems like they respect
Mhm.
you more and stuff like that. Like, how do I get there? And I was like, dude, it's fucking simple, bro. Stop leading from the office. It's that simple, dude. Like, you telling these guys to go work out, to go do this at the motor pool, to go check this vehicle, to go run 6 miles, but your ass is sitting in a fucking office and you want
Mhm.
them to respect you?
No.
Like, you gotta be there, man. And it's the military always has that saying, like, you lead from the front, right? You lead from the front, but not only that, even when you get to a certain extent, right? If I'm a manager, I'm not going to go out there and throw boxes, but I'm still leading from the front intentionally on building other leaders to motivate them. So there's always that perspective of mine of like, how do I lead from the front, even if I'm not in the front,
Yeah. And
right?
I think that that's also so important too. Like we have this huge education boom that's happening in this personal development space. And there's so many coaches that are out there, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're a coach, like you are a leader, coach equals leader. Like you are leading people through this, taking them through your program, whatever. And so I always tell people like, I'm not gonna sit on the other side of your healing journey, like looking at you and taking notes. Like I am linked arms holding up the lantern because I know the way. Like I walked through hell and back in my journey, but I'm gonna go back so I can help you walk through that too. And
Yes.
there's so leading from the back or leading from the front, but heck, if you have to lead from the back to help push people too,
Yeah.
get those people around you or linking arms with people and
Yeah.
going in and doing those things. Yeah, because then they see not only that kind of trust, but they also see what's possible, right?
Yeah.
If people don't have an example in front of them, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to operate in that particular space. And you're right,
Yeah.
they might not have the language for it or like why they don't like, something gives them the
Yeah.
ick, but
Yeah.
you can tell and you can spot something and then you can go, "Oh, that's possible for me." And that I think as well going back to our first point of self-awareness and then coming out genuinely, when you show up as your most authentic self, you're giving someone else permission to do the same. Because
Oh yeah.
we
Love it. Yeah.
often don't think that it's possible to be ourselves in this space. Like, look at me.
Yeah.
I'm just a hippie over here. Okay.
Yeah.
And I talk like a sailor, and I, I've such a storied past and all of these different things.
Yeah.
So like, I'm just uniquely me, and me showing up that way is what allows people to go, oh, I didn't know you could just do that.
Yes.
And same with you showing up and doing this, your podcast this way. Yeah.
This is me. Like, you can see the picture behind me, right? I'm very proud of my heritage, right? Very proud of my heritage. I also like to hustle, grind, everything. I'm wearing a freaking Selena shirt with a Selena hat. Like, I love Tejano music. Like, I'm a big proponent of that, but I also love what I do in leading other people. So what you mentioned about a coach, right? A coach being a leader, right? And I remember one time I was asked like, oh, what kind of coach are you? What kind of coach and everything? And I was like, I don't feel like I'm a coach per se, right? I feel like I'm a catalyst, right? Oof. I'm here to get you to the next step. That's it, man. Like, cause I had, and what hit me with it was because I had a prior client tell me like, hey, because my program is 8 weeks of leadership development, right? And then after that program, I have other books that can support you along your journey for 90-day periods. And she had asked me, she was like, so when do I stop? I'm like, once you learn it. I'm like, my program is not meant to keep you here forever. It's meant to grow you until you're like, John, I have outgrown you. I need to go on to that next coach, that next catalyst that's going to get you to that next step. By all means, that's the whole purpose.
I'm over here trying to put myself out of a job. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, if you grow beyond me and you're like, John, man, you taught me so much. I learned so much. I got this framework. I got the leadership principles you were teaching. I got the instruction, the values. I understand now how to plan and strategize my leadership journey. But now I want to do this. I feel like this is my next step. By all means, man, go. Like, that's exactly what this program is supposed to do, is just teaching you a framework, ensuring that you have it down, and then go on about your business. Yeah. Do something else that's great, and that's one thing that like in your case, right? Like, you're working with people in that same sense, like how you said, right? Like, eventually they're going to outgrow you. You're going to work yourself out of a job, essentially, right? And what I'm interested in is how you got to this. So if you can share a bit of your story of what landed you here.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of people out there who don't know who I am. So I'm very, grateful for this opportunity. But just kind of one thing before we even get there is John and I are talking about these things. And if you're still like, who are these people? What are their credentials? Blah, blah, blah. Like Gary Vaynerchuk, just to name drop someone who talks about this stuff all the time. Like, he and his content has said so many times, I want you to stop listening to me. I make content to get you off your ass, but I want you to stop listening to me and actually go out there and do that. So there are other leaders who are influential and out there in the space who are doing that too. So sometimes I feel like it's just good to kind of give that context of like, it's not just us talking about this. So my name is Danielle Shea, and I'm a healing coach for sexual abuse survivors. I coach male and female survivors all around the world develop their boundaries, build their self-confidence, and ultimately live a joyful and fulfilled life. And the way that I got here is because I'm a lived experienced expert. So what that means is we all get our PhD in life in something. And unfortunately, my PhD in life comes from experiencing multiple sexual abuses and different capacities on that spectrum. And like I said, clawing my way out of my pit of despair or walking through hell to get to this life that I'm living right now, which is a joyful and fulfilled life. And I love that you said, that you're a catalyst. And I always say, like, I'm the light in your lantern, like that healing is possible. And you just keep taking those steps, and they're excruciating steps, but it's possible to get there. And so I started my journey back in 2012 when I I don't like to use the R word because it's very triggering for people, but I experienced the worst kind of sexual abuse. I was drugged at a party, and that really, led to crippling anxiety and depression and all of the things, like no self-worth. And I just went on a war path to destroy myself because it didn't matter if I was here anymore. If I was just a meat suit and no one really actually cared about me, then what is my life? What is my story? Why does it matter? And I made lots of bad decisions with lots of bad people and did lots of things in order to cope and to heal. And I say this part of my story just to let everybody know, like, there's no judgment here. Like, what you did, I probably did too. And there also isn't a, like, one type of person who does certain things. Like, a lot of people look at me and they're like, oh, you're just this like cute little blonde girl. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. But sometimes the people with the biggest smiles are the ones who know how precious life is. Like, I didn't want to be here. Like, actual contemplation of not being here. And so, finally I got to a point where enough is enough. We've all reached that point. And it's never just one thing, right? It's all of this kind of complicated mess that happens. And I started getting help and asking for support. And I had such a privilege of, just the wonderful support system I had and people who were out there, like, making sure that I was okay and getting the healing tools that I needed. And I had a wonderful therapist. Like, everything just really aligned for me. And so, I started my career as an engineer. I'm like a mechanical engineer. I used to for a living. Like, I've done lots of different things. And then I just kind of got this calling of it's time to tell my story. And so I went and I got a whole bunch of credentials, trauma-informed coach, counselor for sexual abuse survivor, root cause analysis, meditation and mindfulness teacher, to get all of these things and these tools to say, okay, I know how to do it for myself, but can I do it for others? And then I created my program called Thrivers Academy, which is a group coaching program where I walk people through my kind of 12 weeks of what do you need to do to heal and grow and live that joyful and fulfilled life, and walk them through those steps.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's, as you know, and it's probably a sour subject, but coming from the military, I mean, I personally saw somebody go through that, was very close with that person. And it was just like how you said, she was going through something that she was making a lot of bad choices. And unfortunately, that bad choice led to an even worse choice. Right. And at the time, I was just very close, where it impacted me as well, in the sense of I had to see it. I had to help kind of nurture it in a way, but it was still a shocking thing to me. And I had to and one of the hardest things for me was, I'll be honest, the system in the military was broken then, like the whole reporting and everything. So yeah, she had made the decision that she didn't want to do that because of the shame, of the guilt, of she didn't want to be in the spotlight and everything like that. And I was, even though I was, and other friends were like, no, you have to do this. You have to do this. You have to do this. Essentially, it was her decision if she wanted to do that. Like, we couldn't go report it for her. Yeah. So like, eventually, like, she didn't do it. I mean, and she's over it now, kind of thing. She healed, but with therapy. Like, it had to take therapy. And interestingly enough, she decided to do psychology as her major because of it. Yeah. Like, she decided to help other people. I wouldn't say it was like strictly just sexual trauma, but she's focusing a lot on PTSD because she suffered a lot of PTSD from that situation. And so it inspired her and kind of motivated her. And I love the phrase that you said earlier with the light, right? I tell people a lot of the times, I'm like, if you're in a dark place, and I got not two philosophies, but two examples. I tell people sometimes, I'm like, sometimes, even though it hurts like hell, man, like, you can learn a lot from yourself if you sit in your dark place. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it sucks. It really sucks. I've been there.
It does. And we avoid it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it took me a while. I mean, I went from it wasn't sexual, but it was I was an addict. I was an addict when I was growing up. I mean, I was addicted to drugs and I was just partying my life away. And I mean, to this day, I'm thankful that I had the vision enough to get out of the situation that I was in, because as of now, I think I've had like maybe 10, 11 people that I've known that were in high school with me that have overdosed in the place where I was living at before. So like, I think sometimes to myself when I hear of somebody else that passed, I'm like, damn, dude, like, fuck, I could have been sitting right next to them on that damn couch.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, it was just like, but it took me a while to sit in that dark place of mine and understand, like, this is what it made, this is that situation made you doing this right now. You can help somebody that's sitting in a dark place because you've been there yourself, you sat in it. And I've been, I mean, that was a hard time. Like, my wife was around where shit, I was in the room for a week and a half, like just not doing anything because I was in that dark place. I was sitting there and I was just like, dude, you're gonna fucking make it hurt. You're gonna make it hurt so you learn this.
Yeah.
And it's
rough. Like, there's such a power in that too. And I think that a lot of people, they look at personal development and they look at sitting in that dark place and I think it's soft. And I think that it's like, especially for my male clients, and this is a very gendered generalization and I greatly apologize for that, but I work with a lot of alpha females and a lot of alpha males, and like they're the type of people that I attract, and we don't like soft things. Okay. And personal development, meditation, like looking at your scars, looking at your wounds, that is not soft work. Yeah. That is like you trying to like rub some dirt in it, like that's soft work. Like if you want to actually go in there and you want to get all the gunk out, like that's surgery. Like that is surgery. And that is rough. It's so rough. And it's why we avoid it. But there's also that kind of stigma around it too, about just like, well, I just like brush it off because it's not important. Like it is everything actually. And again, going back to that self-awareness of if you don't know yourself, you can't make quick decisions. And if you're a leader, you need to make decisions on a dime. You're going to get decision fatigue. Like it's going to happen. And so you need to be able to do that inner work, do that self-awareness. So that way you can make quick decisions. You can keep striving. You can keep going. And I always tell people, like, I want to take survivors from survivor to thriver. And in order to do that, you have to be a striver. You have to want to see that hope and see that light at the end of the tunnel. And that is true for all of leadership, no matter what you're doing. Like you have to believe that there is something better. That's what you're driving towards. And you are keeping yourself stuck if you are not doing that inner work for yourself.
Oh, definitely. And sorry, my dogs are going out. Got to get them out of here before they go crazy. But no, and I definitely, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I was gonna kind of ask you, so do you work with leaders that have had sexual trauma, and what's their, like, I guess, what's their outlook? What's their, like, the way they lead? Because I find it interesting in the sense of what you're helping them heal through, or really go through and then heal through, right? How does it affect them as being a leader, right?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I think that it's kind of, I think if we can think about it from maybe a different perspective of like parenting, right? I'm not a parent, but I have seen my cousins and my friends become parents. And there's this thing kind of in the parenting world of you either become like your parents or you are the exact opposite of them, right? Because it's you either are learning and then doing their behaviors, whether you want to or not, like whether it's subconscious or not, or you're actively being like, no, that's a big no, whether it was a good thing, whether you had a good childhood or a bad childhood. And so I think with leaders, we do that too, right? And we see, oh, well, this person leads like that, and it seems to kind of be working for them, so I'll just do that. Or you have a really bad leader and you're like, fuck no, I can't believe that they would do things like that. And so then you actively kind of, you do something against that. And so that, I think that's like on the surface, that's kind of what people do. But people live from their trauma responses. And so as of right now, there are 4 types of trauma responses. Fight and flight, which we all know very much about. Those live in the sympathetic nervous system. And then we have freeze and fawn, which live in the parasympathetic nervous system. And if you learned about like breathing exercise and things like that, we always say, okay, we want to like get down into the parasympathetic nervous system. But now we know that those freeze and fawn states, they live in there too. And so it's not just that like one nervous system is better than the other. Like we have trauma responses in both, and we need both for certain situations.
Yeah.
And so if people, and so you often don't know that you are reacting from this trauma response. So for example, my trauma response is flight, and it's not to run away in like a particular situation. It's when I don't want to do the deep work, I'm like looking up flights. I'm like, I just want to walk into the ocean and never come back. I just need to get in my car and drive, like, because I'm trying to like move through kind of my neural pathways. And I do that through like walking or trying to get away from things. But I also know that that's like a toxic trait at the same time. Like you can't run away from your problems. They just don't. And so then you have to sit there and learn about it. So that's an example from my own life. And so if you are operating from a trauma response and you don't know what your trauma response is, then you can't do anything about it. But then even if once you know what your trauma response is, then you can kind of start to look at, oh, how am I operating in my day-to-day life? So maybe you're a leader and you have decision fatigue because you're not, you're not doing that self-awareness work, and someone comes in and they have to have a difficult conversation with you, or you have to have a difficult conversation with someone else. Like, look at your patterns. What are you doing like right before or right after that? Are you scrolling on social media? Are you like, are you doing mechanisms? Like what's happening? Are you immediately angry? Like kind of what's going on? And that can be a clue into maybe what kind of trauma response are you acting from. And then that's when we can start to unpack some other things, which I think is like the kind of crux of your question of how is this affecting people and how is this moving forward? But that's kind of like that base level of like, what's your operation system? What's your operating system? Like,
and that's so interesting. So I learned, obviously I'm not like a psych major or anything like that, right? But I had another interviewer that I interviewed on the podcast, and they mentioned I forgot how they put it, but they're like, a lot of your operating system or how you function right now is due to 8-year-old you.
Yeah, 100%.
And it was interesting because I saw, I think it was a book that said something like, heal the 8-year-old self or something like that, right? I got to look it up. I forgot what it was, but it was interesting because when I was talking to them, they were like, well, she said like, well, what happened at your age? Because I'm a very strategic mindset person. I make plans and everything like that, right? And even when I started to develop my leadership program when I joined the military in like 2006, but it was my own personal development program, right? It was kind of initiated by my squad leader. Then my first leader, he kind of asked me a question that kind of stuck with me. He's like, 5 years from now, where do you want to be? Do you want to be promoted? Do you want to be a sergeant? Like, stuff like that. And that's what prompted me to like build something. So I thought it stemmed from that, right? From the military side. And then when she asked me that, and she kind of took me back a little bit, and she's like, so what happened at that age and everything? So one of the things that happened was my father shocked me because he put his hands on my mom, right? And at that point, so the way she broke it down for me was, so pretty much you look to somebody that was supposed to be your protector, that was supposed to be a loving member of your family, everything like that, somebody you can trust, and then they deceived you because it happened in front of you. So now all your trust is gone, and now you feel you have to control every situation that you're in. And
Which can
that
be,
blew my mind.
and that right there can be applied to, I think, anyone who's experienced some kind of like rough kind of trauma, right? And you talked about something before, so I'm glad that we're getting back to this because I wanted to bring this up in leadership as well, is,
Okay.
you know, consent culture in the workplace. It doesn't exist unless you make it exist. And there are so many jobs that I have quit and left because the culture wasn't right. And, you know, it was, a lot of it was due to that consent culture, but also, you know, like the lack of that, and also the lack of feeling like you have any power or say or control, right? And so there's so many people who have experienced, especially, you know, sexual trauma or domestic violence or abuse or human trafficking or whatever. And they are like the type A personalities, or like they have the color coded spreadsheets, and they have, you know, everything like kind of in a row, or like they have the plan, and it's because that need to be in control. And it's because at that point in your trauma, like you were not in a place that control was even an option. Because, and then this is where like the insidious mind games start happening. Like, well, I should have done something better. If I wasn't doing this and this wouldn't have happened, and the shame and the guilt and all of that starts building up and up and up. And then that just also reframes how you think about yourself and what you're capable of. And also your view on life and other people. But not only do you lose the trust with other people, but you lose the trust with yourself as well. And so sometimes we hold so tightly to that control in order to not be triggered by the situations that we're in. And this goes back to understanding your trauma responses, understanding what are you triggered by, so that way you don't feel like you have to like death grip every piece of your life, so you don't feel like you're going to fall apart.
And that makes perfect sense, because what I was telling you with the friend that I had to go through the sexual trauma with, that she went through, that I was privy to, or kind of in the same, you know, environment. One thing led to another, and you know, I ended up leaving, but there was so much going on at that point in my life, right? I was like, personal things, like my personal life was like, I was going through divorce, going through a breakup. I was getting sent to a different country that I didn't know. Like I was getting sent to Korea when I was in the military. So I'm just like, everything's changing. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to be able to see my son no more. My ex-wife was fighting me on a lot of stuff. And I was just like, man, like very overwhelming, right? And it was crazy because when I didn't understand it then, right? So then I went to Korea and I started suffering from panic attacks, like very severe panic attacks.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was. Like it scared the shit out of me because I really thought I was dying. Like I was just having heart palpitations. I was like, oh shit, I'm having a heart attack. I'm 26 years old. The hell's going on? Like, and nothing was wrong with me. Like I would go to the doctor, I would go to the ER, and I went like 3 times before they sent me to the hospital. And they're like, hey man, do you suffer from anxiety? And I'm like, no, you know, I didn't know what the hell it was.
Really not.
And then finally they diagnosed me and stuff, and they were like, yeah, like you're having panic attacks, right? So, but what was crazy is when I heard what she had told me, it made sense, because I was like, it wasn't everything that was going on, it's that I was fucking losing control of everything.
Yeah.
Didn't know, like I didn't train myself. I didn't know how to deal with it. And that's a big portion that I try teaching people now in my program is resiliency training, right? Like, and it doesn't have to be this big thing. Like I always try telling like clients or friends or whoever, right? Like resiliency training doesn't have to be this big thing of like, I'm gonna go train for the Boston City Marathon. Like, no, like It's something simple to me. Resiliency training was going to Walmart without my headphones on.
Yeah.
Because I would do that for sensory. I was like, I don't want to listen to anybody. I don't want to hear anybody. I don't want to, I'm just going to go in, grab my stuff out.
Yeah.
And then after a while, I had to learn that I'm like, dude, this is a trigger for me. This is something that I don't want to do, but I need to do it. I need to do it. Right. So I just started challenging myself little by little. Like, I'm not going to wear the headphones when I go in there. I'm going to walk in there. I'm going to, and then little by little, it started going to, I'm going to say hi to one person. Like, that's just how you train the resiliency in you. And it's little things. And I even do it where I've had my wife sometimes, like, even with physical fitness, right? I have my wife sometimes, she'll just make I tell her, plan a workout for me. Just one day, some shit that's gonna challenge me. She already knows what my death is. It's burpees. Like, so, and she'll put it on there, and I train myself, like, my mind to just like do it, man. Just do it. Like, and I tell her, like, she doesn't give me the note card or anything like that. I just wake up that day and I go for it, right? Yeah. And that's why I try telling people, like, you train resiliency, but you have to come back and sit in that dark place. You got to figure out where you need to train,
Yeah. So let's try to give listeners like something that they can kind of tangibly use for this too. And so I want to touch on three things based off of what you said. One, all of the things that I teach, and it sounds like a lot of things that you teach are simple. Doesn't mean they're easy.
Yeah.
Simple and easy, not the same thing, right? So I teach a lot of very simple things. Doesn't mean that they're easy to do. Second is like those panic attacks coming up. Like, your body is going to manifest all of the pain that it feels in some way or another. And it's going to get to a point, if you're not dealing with it emotionally, you're going to deal with it physically. So it's going to manifest at some kind of, pain or attack or something like that. If you don't deal with that, right? Because we need to deal with our emotional wounds just like we would deal with our physical wounds. Yeah. If you don't deal with a physical wound, it gets infected and it's gross and it spreads and it's all these things. Like same with our energetic and our emotional bodies. And so there's a really great book called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's rough. Okay. It starts off, you're like, whoa, here we are. But even if you just read like the first couple pages, you kind of understand like how much you just kind of hold within yourself and your physical being. And so then just a couple exercises, I think that's going to be really helpful for people listening, because you're like, okay, great. All of this stuff sounds awesome. I'm struggling. What can I do about it? Here for you. Yeah. So first of all, Google breathing exercises. I don't care what you do. Just learn how to breathe. My first thing that I teach my clients right off the bat is drink water, sleep, go for a walk, breathe. That's all I want you to do. The first week, all I want you to do is those 4 things. The next week, we get to like that 2.0. So now we're doing different breathing exercises. Look up box breathing or 4x4 breathing. That's a really simple one. It's super powerful. 4x4 breathing or box breathing. We can do that if you'd like. But I want to just get to one other thing. So if you're a strategist and you're a leader, like you're someone who wants to go and plan things, then I want you to do this exercise called the 5 whys. If you're ever in a position of just like, why is this happening? Why is this important to me? And you might have to, use that for a business presentation or, show your boss, like, why do you deserve this promotion? First, you have to figure out like, why is that important? So the 5 whys, you literally just go, okay, well, why is that important? Okay, well, why was that important? Okay, well, why? Well, why? Well, why? And you do it at least 5 times. Sometimes you can hit the root cause at 3. Sometimes it takes 7. But you just kind of keep asking yourself that question. And that is going to lead to profound self-awareness. And so if you're trying this out, the thing that might happen is you're going to go, well, I don't know. I'm here to tell you right now, I don't know is a cop-out. And you know that it's a cop-out. Oh, I don't know. That's a cop-out. You're a leader. We go big or we go home. Like, so you saying like, I don't know, then sit with that. where did you feel that come up in your body? That, I don't know, did your shoulders tense up? Did your stomach clench? Did you have a pain in your foot? Like, really start to notice, where is this happening in my body? And then very simply, just kind of relax that area. And you don't need to know why. You don't need to understand it. But if you can just kind of get into that, okay, this happened. I felt it here. Okay, I'm just going to sit and I'm going to just try to relax that. And then you can go to your next why and continue.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a really simple exercise for like why you want to do things. And maybe that breathing exercise that you do is the box breathing exercise to help you kind of relax that. So
I love that
right now, if you'd like.
The box breathing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I'm interested in that.
Awesome. So box breathing is super simple. You breathe in for 4 counts, you hold for 4 counts, you breathe out for 4 counts, you hold for 4 counts. So you're making a box. Breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. Breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. And what this does is it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. It calms you down. It lowers your cortisol levels. And that relaxive state is going to allow you to think a little bit better. Because if we're just so hyper-focused here, or like if our anxiety started clicking off, you're not thinking properly. Your anxiety goes, what's worst case scenario? And so something I always joke like with my therapist is, because coaches have coaches, therapists have therapists, right? Is she'll be like, what's worst case scenario? And my answer is death. Death is worst case scenario. She's like, okay, Danielle, back it up. What's the most likely scenario? Okay, back it up. What's best case scenario? And so we have to go through things like that. But my answer is always death. So your anxiety is flare up, especially if you're really good at anxiety, right? If you're really good at it, your answer is just like, well, absolutely.
Yeah, I've done it where it's like I'll be in a nervous place or whatever, and it takes some practice. That's one thing that I did learn. It takes practice in identifying it. So when I first started having anxiety like that, like I couldn't identify it at all. It just like it felt like it just came all at once, right?
Yeah.
Now it's more like, okay, I can identify it a little bit. I know, like, okay, it's creeping. And I remember like a lot of the things that, or one thing that really helped me a lot was I was talking to a therapist then too, and they were just like, dude, just tell yourself they're like, you got to understand, because for mine, I don't know, I forgot what he called it, but for mine was always something physical, because when I first had my first anxiety attack, it was in the gym. So I thought like, oh my gosh, I went too hard. My heart's about to explode or something. Like my mind just went there, right? So for some reason, it always came back as a physical thing for me. So I would feel like, oh, I felt like my left arm twitch. Oh, I'm about to have a heart attack right now. Like that's just like you, like my mind would just jump to the worst case scenario. Like, and then for some reason, and it took me a couple reflective periods to understand this. One of my biggest like fears, it was like the fear of having an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
It wasn't even the anxiety itself. It was just
anxiety about anxiety.
What if I have an anxiety attack in Walmart right now? And then the anxiety kept building and building and building. And I'm like, I got to get out of here. But it was like, I'm like having anxiety about having anxiety.
Yeah. 100%. And that happens. And that's why it's like, we need the tools to be able, tools to be able to use in those moments, but we need tools to be able to use that we're not going to become self-conscious about, which is also why I really like box breathing, because you can do it without anybody really noticing. Like, I was doing an interview with someone on my podcast, the Danielle Shea podcast, where we talk about healing from sexual trauma. And we were talking about box breathing, and the person I was interviewing was a psychologist, and he goes, I'm box breathing right now. I'm like, yeah, exactly. And you're on camera, like you can't tell. So we're kind of high and we're kind of high energy right now, but I do want to just kind of show people how to do it. So close your eyes if you want or not. I'm going to slip into my meditation voice. But
if so what we're going to do, pass out, it's your fault.
Not a hypnotist. So yeah, you can do this wherever. It doesn't have to be like in a kind of meditated state. It can really just be just do it. So I like to do it sitting down. You can do it standing up. You can do it walking. Just roll your shoulders back, kind of get some kinks out. You know, maybe you hold a lot of tension in your booty. Shake that a little bit. Maybe it's in your feet. Give those a shake. Shake out your hands. And then I'll count us down 3, 2, 1. And then we'll go up, and we'll only do 2 rounds just so we can keep going. Cause I love all the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you're doing it by yourself, let's try for 4. Try for 4 times. We'll only do it twice here. So you're going to close your eyes, and in 3, 2, 1, breathe in through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last time, breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you let your breath come back to the natural rhythm. And bonus point for noticing how you felt before and how you feel now. So that was super quick, but did you feel any kind of change?
Yeah. And mine is, so it's interesting you said feet, because I hold a lot of tension in my feet. Like, it's constant, right?
Yeah.
And like right now, I felt like my back relaxing,
Yeah.
which I know my tension comes from the bottom of my feet, goes to my calves, goes to my hammies, goes to my butt, goes to my back.
Yeah.
And you can kind of feel that, like, just relax. And you know what's interesting is, I was thinking about it too. I was like, right now that I was breathing, I was like, man, I need to do this when I go to sleep. I have the hardest time going to sleep sometimes, like, because my mind is racing.
Yeah.
And this would definitely help that.
Yeah. And also, okay, I think this is really important to talk about, because literally I have one of my journals over here, and I was just journaling about this. I asked myself the question, what keeps you up at night? And I think for a lot of leaders, the answer is that there just isn't enough time. That there isn't enough time to do all the things that I want to do, especially if you've seen some shit in your life. You're like, I don't want to end up like them, or I don't want to, I don't want to do this. And sometimes we run from our fear. We're either running from the darkness, or we're like running towards the light.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Either way, we're running. Like, I we're running. It does. I don't really care like how you're getting there. But like, I think the thing that keeps our mind awake is either that there's not enough time, or that might be for this audience, or it's like there's so much anxiety, like, oh, I have to go through everything that I did today because does everybody hate me? Yes. There's different things that can keep us up at night. But then so what is that thing? Just set a timer, 10 minutes, write it out. What is that thing? You're going to be shocked at what comes out. And even if it's not the first time you journal, but it's the second time, but I'll get halfway through journaling and be like, Danielle, why? This works. Like, why are you not doing it? Yeah. But it's because we're afraid of finding out what it is.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that we can't change. Or what if we find something out about ourselves that like diminishes something, or like changes our trajectory or whatever? And I think that we're afraid to fall asleep or to go to sleep because of so many different reasons. Yeah. And that just, like I said, my first 4 things: drink water, go for a walk, sleep, eat, breathe. If you're not sleeping, you're not going to lead. You're not going to heal. You're not going to do anything. There's a whole book called Why We Sleep.
Yeah. And
so we need it.
That's so interesting, because I hit a moment in my like journey where I realized, like, that was in a way that was a trauma that I was causing myself, because I was working full time. I was trying to run my business on the side. and I was still hitting the gym in the morning. I still serve in the Army Reserve. So I had a lot going on at one time. And I remember like I was probably averaging like 4.5, 5 hours of sleep a night for a week. And then I was crashing like on Saturdays or Sundays, or else like I was telling people like, man, I got sick again. Like I just, what was this, about a month and a half ago now? Like I had pneumonia. I had pneumonia for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because I was just going through that. So for those that don't know,
you're
like
grinding and you're hustling, but I don't see a rest poster up there.
No, there's other walls. So
okay.
this wall right here, grinding, hustle, right? I have another wall that's like it's common, peace, love, energy. Like that's one of my and going through my story, right? One of my core values, my number one core value is love, right? And I had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah.
I learned that the hard way. I learned that through my story, which, you know, people can check out my book for it. But it's essentially my dog that saved my life, you know, and taught me the meaning of true leadership. It's love, right? It's not hitting metrics. It's not doing anything like that. It's just, you got to lead with love. If you're not leading with love, you're kind of missing the point of it. You know, that's how I look at it now. And it's even with that, like I had to learn myself. And it's interesting now that like I have love as one of my core values. And it wasn't even like that I didn't love my family or I didn't love the people that I was leading or that I was working with. It's like, fuck, dude, I wasn't loving myself, dude. Like I wasn't fucking loving myself to the point where I wasn't getting adequate enough sleep. Like it's something that simple where I was like, no, John, get up, go. And there was mornings where I was just like, get up, freaking slam a cup of coffee, hit to the gym, work out for an hour, take a shower real quick, go to work a 12-hour shift, come back home. By the time I got home, I got like an hour and a half with my family. For 30 minutes, I was jumping on the computer, doing some business stuff, sending some emails and stuff. 1 hour with the family. I'm sitting there like watching a movie with them, like,
yeah.
And my wife would tell me all the time, she's like, you need to slow down. And it took me, I mean, I don't believe in coincidence, right? I think everything happens for a reason, like it's divinely guided. And even the hard stuff, like back then I would have told you like, oh, me getting addicted to drugs was like, oh, that was horrible, everything like that. But it taught me a very valuable lesson about self-regulation. Controlling your desires. About everybody has them. You can't tell me like people don't have desires, or like I don't give a shit who you are. Everybody has those inner dark moments of themselves, right? And I always joke with some people because I'm like, going in the military, you almost develop like a dark ass sense of humor. So
here's the thing, like you see so much stuff, like it doesn't matter, military trauma, whatever, you can get PTSD, and we use humor to cope. And like, the humor me and my clients have together, I'm like, oh my gosh, if anyone else was listening to this conversation, it's okay.
Yeah. And that's how I would think. Like some conversations that I'm having with friends, and I'm like, dude, like even like my front neighbor, he's prior military too, and like he'll send me something like on Facebook, and he'll just like, hey bro, check this video out. And like my wife sees it and she's like, oh my God, that's so messed up. And I'm laughing my ass off.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's just a different sense of humor because like you said, when you've seen certain stuff, when you've experienced certain things, like it, and we can probably do a whole nother podcast.
I was going to say that also like, everyone listening, like, again, why? Like, why is that happening?
Yes.
There's so much to unpack there. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And definitely with the with the trauma piece, I mean, you can probably give a little bit more perspective on this. I just feel the first step is just, do you feel this first step? For me, it was after I realized it, right? And I wasn't actively trying to like figure out like the addiction thing or the panic attack things, right? I was getting help, but it wasn't until like it actually hit me. So how would you, if somebody's dealing with that right now, say there's a leader out there right now, leading a team, leading a company, a business, whatever, entrepreneur, and they're like, look, I am dealing with something in the back end I don't have people in front of me. I don't have anybody that I can confide in and come out to and ask for help. What would be your advice for those first couple steps that they need to take?
So a really good question. So what's the first thing that people can do? So off camera, we were kind of talking about this. And I would say that if you feel like you can't ask for help, get creative about it. There are ways that you can ask for support or you can ask for help. And it doesn't have to be like, look, my mentors for business don't know that I exist. Gary Vaynerchuk, talked about him earlier. He doesn't know I exist. Yeah. But I watched his videos until I was able to incorporate those things into my business. Marie Forleo, she doesn't know I exist. But like you can have these role models and these leaders and you can read books and you can listen to podcasts and you can get support. Like make John part of your support system. Yeah. You need help from healing, jump over to my podcast. It's free. Like make us part of your support system, even if you don't, or even if you're not in a place, like get a coach or get a therapist or anyone to kind of support you through that. Just knowing that you're not alone, like that alone can be so incredibly healing. But if even if you're like, okay, like I still don't know how to ask for help, I don't know what to do, stop making things complicated.
Yeah.
I work with people all over the world and we all start with the same thing. Drink water, sleep, go for a walk, breathe, right? Like and I would say if you're not doing any of those things, if you're feeling stressed or if you're feeling like just you don't know what to do, go for a walk because studies show that walking actually allows your brain to work through things. You don't even have to be thinking about those things, but it's going to allow you to work through it because you are walking and your body's like, oh, I'm moving forward in time and I'm moving forward in a direction. So how can I unravel this problem that I need to move forward in? So maybe that's healing. Maybe it's like, okay, I don't know what to do and I know I need help, but I don't know how to need help. Go for a walk.
Yeah.
Like, meditate. And by meditate, I don't mean like sit there and be still. Because that's frightening if you are not self-aware, or even if you are self-aware, it can just feel like anyways, I have to say meditate because I'm a meditation teacher, but also like walking is meditative, like just moving your body. And then going back to that somatic like healing of if you know the body keeps the score, everything, all of your traumas and your past experiences live in the body. If you haven't worked through that, then it's going to stay in there. So walk, like block off your calendar for lunch, go outside, go for a walk around your building, like wherever it is that you work, and really try to move your body. And so I would say, obviously all of those 4 things are super, super important, but we breathe without thinking about it. You're at least drinking coffee, and I have lots of opinions about that, but we won't go into it. And if you're not going to sleep because you're like, I can't even do that, then I just ask, can you go for a walk? Can you take a meeting on the phone while you're walking? And start to move your body and get through that. And so that can feel like a much more accessible first step for people than journaling or meditation or asking for help. Can you go for a walk for 10 minutes?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I've experienced that, and I will definitely second that. There's been problems that I've had that I solved on a walk with my dog.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I'm just walking him, and I'm like, all right, go get the ball, bud. And then I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Like the shower ideas, the ideas that happen in the shower because like you've actually taken time to calm down and do a little self-care. Like hygiene is self-care.
Yes, definitely.
The walk is the same thing.
Definitely. And I always tell people, like, when they're like, oh, I don't have enough time or whatever, or little things like that, or I don't really like walking, I'm like, dude, get a dog.
Even a little get a dog. They're going to have to. Yeah.
Dog, man, I was like, I'm telling you, they will tug at your heartstrings because they want to go outside. They will get you to go at least for like a 10, 15. I even told like one of my friends, because they're a little bigger and stuff, and they're like, man, I'm too big to be walking and stuff. And I'm like, dude, get a bulldog, man. They need like 10 minutes, bro. Like 10 minutes, and you walk out there with them. Both of y'all will be tired. You come back home and you chill. So yeah, definitely. No, appreciate you answering that, especially for anybody that's out there maybe struggling with it. You know, first steps, right? You gotta take the first steps. And I'm big proponent of listen to other people as well, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like you said earlier, coaches have coaches, right? I was working with a fitness coach just not too long ago and stuff like that on my journey and stuff like that. So I truly feel like nobody has it all figured out. Not one person has it all figured out. We are just learning from everybody else's experiences, man. So,
have you ever heard of a healing coach for sexual abuse survivors? No. You want to know why? Because I made that title up.
Yeah.
I made it up.
There you go.
No, yeah. We're all doing our best. We are all doing our best. And knowing that you are doing your best with the tools that you have, even if you could do better, like we're all striving for something, even if we're like, I could do better, you are doing your best with the tools that you know right now. And the one thing I just want to add to this is ask yourself the question, what feels accessible? So if you're in a depressive mode or if you're in anxiety mode, ask yourself, what feels accessible? And if the answer is to get up and go pee, and then you realize, oh my gosh, I haven't been peeing in 3 hours, right? Whatever, or even if you have, if that's accessible, do that. And then ask yourself again, what feels accessible? If it's to go drink a glass of water, do that. If it's to go sit on your couch, do that. But when you start to ask yourself what feels accessible and you start to chip away at those little tasks, then you start to build momentum, right? And an object in motion stays in motion. Here's my engineering coming through. But
there you go.
that momentum will build. And if you just ask yourself, again, it doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah.
It can be super simple. What feels accessible right now? Do that thing. And like, then notice like how did your body respond to that?
Yes.
Even if you don't add in that self-awareness piece, just what's next? What's next? What's next?
Yeah.
What's next?
And I'm glad you say that, because that's essentially like what I help leaders identify. Really, it's my 8-week program. I call it a leadership development program because it will develop your skills as a leader, and you'll see as you go through it, you're going through strength, opportunity, attitude, resilience, intent, necessity, gratitude. That's why it's called the soaring leader, right? You go through the entire lesson and everything, but essentially it's just an awareness program. It's just it's just to get you to figure out your next step. And just like we were talking about earlier, it's a catalyst. It's to get you to keep moving, right? So, but Danielle, I know we're almost out of time. So last but not least, which is one of my favorites, right, is I wanted to ask you, what would you recommend to someone? Favorite quote, a favorite book, or a favorite podcast?
Okay, so I'm really happy that I'm prepared for this one because we talked about it before we started recording. So when I was in college, I worked at a maker's space. So it was basically like a glorified janitor for a while. But I got to play with all their cool toys. So like lathes and CNCs and woodworking and things like that. And so I got to laser cut something. So I'm going to use my favorite quote, which is, "A ship in harbor is safe, but that is not what ships are built for." And so I made it into like a little keychain here. And like leaders, we talked about how self-awareness is not soft work, right? Like you going in and taking the time to understand your inner landscape, taking the time to understand yourself is going to make you a better leader. But it might feel like you're not moving anywhere. And oftentimes we're like, we need to go, 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 go. You doing that inner work, like that is the ship rocking. Like that is you moving and taking momentum. And so I would like to ask you, like, where are you playing safe? And are you playing safe with your own development, with your own emotions? Are you playing safe in that way? And if the answer is yes, then okay, great. What can we do about it? Because if you're listening to this, like if you're listening to John, like you were put on this earth to do amazing things.
Yeah. Oh, I hope so. Because that's my purpose. That's what I feel like I'm here to do. Somebody had asked me that, and they're like, what's your purpose? I'm like, to influence others that can affect true change in this world. Like, I feel I'm not the smartest rock You know, I'm not the smartest, you know, crayon in the box or anything like that. But I was like, I know that somebody is out there that I hope 30, 40 years from now, I don't care what it is, that can say like, hey man, I caught John and Danielle's podcast, man. He inspired me to do this. And guess what? That dude, that girl, that whoever it was changed the world.
Yeah.
And it started with just a simple conversation like this. And it, you know, it like we said earlier, we're just the little flashlights. We're the catalyst.
Yeah.
To put people forward, right? So I love it, Danielle. I love it. And anyway, how can people get a hold of you? If they want to work with you, if they want to reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, awesome. So you can find me at danielleshea.blog. That is my website. And you can find me on Instagram at Danielle Shea blog. I am here. I love it when people slide into my DMs to tell me their story or, you know, ask for support in some kind of way. And I'm here to support you to live a joyful and fulfilled life. And if nothing else, I'm here to show you that healing is possible. And I love working with leaders. I love working with people who are strivers, who are out there already trying to do the work and succeeding and doing the work and whatever that is. And so if you feel like there's a piece of yourself, and whether it's sexual trauma or any kind of something else of trauma that's like, you just need to work through a little bit and then you would be like just a rocket, like you can, like, don't let that part of yourself again, stay small or stay hidden, because it is a beautiful piece of yourself. And the more authentic, which means the more self-aware and the more you understand yourself and all of those pieces, even the dark stuff, the more that healing is possible and the more that you can change the world, just like John was saying.
Awesome. Awesome, Danielle. Yeah. And I'd just like to remind everybody, just the motto of leading life, guys. I mean, there's a reason you heard my dog bark earlier. You heard everything going on, right? We're being leaders in life. I mean, that's really it, right? I mean, this is why you build these skills. This is why you go through this, right? It's to understand how to put these skills into your own life and live it, right? And it's really, I like to remind people, the model for my company, the model for my program, guys, is persistence, not perfection. Okay? Just keep on going, guys. All right? Danielle, I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. Air high five. Boom. Awesome. Hopefully we can have you on later on as well, and we can definitely keep talking more.
Thank you so much, John, and thank you everyone listening.
Thank you. All right. Awesome. So yeah, I'll just cut it off right there. That was awesome, girl.
It was great. We touch on so many things. Wow.
I'm telling you, we could have probably went for another hour easily.
Oh, easily. I have more to say. I would love to come back on the show whenever you want.
I know I recorded somebody else last week and we were just going and I was like, oh shit, it's already an hour and 15 minutes. And I was like, dude, we can. So he like messaged me on the site. He's like, bro, I gotta go. And I'm like, cool. Hey, and it's funny because we both ended on a story and we're like, you know what, guys, hold on. You gotta catch part 2 on our next video because we're gonna have to do another one. We're already an hour and 15 minutes in and like we can't just make a 2-hour long like thing, you know. So we're like, we'll do another one and we'll tell you the ending of that video or that story and stuff. So
that's good.
It worked out. Yeah. So no, awesome. You gotta be on the computer right now or no?